Welcome to Podkey Slopcast, where we're pressure testing the idea of the self-driving company. A company says AI agents are now doing so much of the work that humans mostly set direction, make trade-offs, and step in for judgment. The interesting question isn't whether that sounds futuristic, it's whether the operating model actually holds up under the numbers, the bottlenecks, and the reliability claims. The core claim here is pretty specific. Humans still decide strategy and priorities, but AI agents execute most of the operational steps. So this isn't full automation in the sci-fi sense. It's closer to distributed digital staff threaded through the company. Take a goal, gather context, do the work, and escalate when human judgment is needed. That framing matters because a lot of the promise depends on where the handoff line sits. If agents only do lightweight chores, this is useful but ordinary. If they can move across tools, make intermediate decisions, and finish end-to-end workflows, that's a more meaningful shift. The company says they've pushed toward the second version by giving agents access to GitHub, cloud platforms, ticketing, docs, chat, and support systems under zero-trust controls. If that's accurate, then the agent isn't just a chatbot attached to one app, it's becoming workflow infrastructure. The strongest evidence presented is the output data. From January to June, total lines of code contributed rose 5.8 times, and in a stable cohort analysis, per engineer code production rose 2.9 times, even while headcount doubled. Those are unusually large gains, and the stable cohort point is important because it tries to avoid the easy explanation that growth came only from hiring more people. But code volume is an imperfect proxy for value. More lines can mean more shipped product, or more duplication, or more machine-generated boilerplate that still has to be maintained later. So the right test is whether throughput rose without a matching decline in quality or reliability. On that question, the company's own follow-up metrics are doing a lot of work. They say an internal agent now scores pull request risk and only summons a human reviewer when needed, cutting human PR review time by about 30%. More interesting than the time savings is the systems effect. Even with much more code being produced, review latency stayed flat because the agent absorbed most of the review work. That sounds good, but there's also a useful warning hidden in their own story. AI didn't erase process constraints, it moved them. The surge in generated code created a new review bottleneck, and they had to solve that by embedding the agent directly into the review process. That's probably the most credible part of the whole narrative, because real operational changes usually create second-order problems. If anything, that undercuts simplistic hype. The model seems less like magic and more like continuous workflow redesign. On reliability, the company says agents now investigate production incidents and perform root cause analysis, which reduced mean time to mitigation. They also say reversion rates and newly opened incident counts stayed flat despite much higher output. If those measures are defined consistently, that's the clearest argument that increased speed didn't obviously wreck stability. Still, flat reliability metrics aren't the same as proven long-term robustness. A 6-month productivity surge can hide maintenance debt that shows up later. So the claim we can support is narrower based on the metrics they shared. The reliability picture did not obviously worsen in the near term. The stronger claim that agents make software organizations sustainably safer at scale isn't established here yet. One of the sharpest strategic claims is that their homegrown agent matched or beat leading alert triage and penetration testing SaaS tools at roughly 1/10 the cost. They even say they dropped a 7-figure external SaaS product after the internal agent outperformed it on both quality and price. That may be true, but the comparison needs context. Internal tools often look cheaper if you don't fully price the engineering time, maintenance burden, security oversight, and key person risk needed to keep them working. At the same time, vendor pricing can become hard to justify if a general-purpose agent can cover 80 to 90% of the job once it has access to your internal context. That's the real pressure point for SaaS here. The strongest version of the argument isn't that every company should build everything in-house. It's that firms with enough technical depth and enough proprietary context may now have a new make versus buy frontier. The swarm agent idea is manager agents spawning subordinate agents to run verification loops on complex tasks, like CSS migrations or cleaning up flaky tests. Conceptually, this makes sense in domains where work is repetitive, checkable, and easy to parallelize. You want lots of attempts, lots of validations, and a human only when the loop gets stuck or the trade-offs become subjective. They also point to a hard networking bug, the PSC NFT shutdown issue, as an example where a swarm resolved something previously thought unsolvable. That story is intriguing, but it's also the one that needs the most caution. A single dramatic debugging win is suggestive, not conclusive. Complex bug hunts are famous for being anecdote-friendly. Still, it does highlight a credible edge case. Agents may be especially useful when the bottleneck is patient, exhaustive search across many hypotheses rather than one flash of human insight. The model gets more interesting when it leaves engineering. They say data teams built a semantic layer over the warehouse so employees can ask BI questions and get live charts without waiting on a data engineer. Sales, marketing, and support are also using agents for lead enrichment, automatic slide generation, and faster handling of escalated support tickets, with support reportedly seeing 60% faster resolution. That matters because a lot of AI transformation talk quietly assumes the hard part is code generation. In many companies, the bigger gain may come from removing cross-functional queues, waiting on analytics, waiting on docs, waiting on support triage, waiting on someone who knows which system to touch. But broader access also raises governance questions. Zero trust controls help, but once agents can act across systems, mistakes can propagate across systems too. The more end-to-end the automation gets, the more careful the permissioning, auditability, and escalation design has to be. Their adoption strategy is also worth noticing. They exposed agent interactions in public Slack channels so people could watch the tools answer questions, fix copy, and solve problems before being asked to change their own workflows. That's smart, because resistance to AI inside companies is often less about ideology and more about uncertainty, status, and fear of extra hassle. Visible wins create pull instead of top-down compliance. It also aligns incentives. If a skeptical team sees another group getting faster turnarounds, they start asking for access on their own. That's a much easier deployment path than mandating behavior change first and proving value later. Taken together, the most supported claims are the near-term throughput gains, the emergence of new bottlenecks, and the need to redesign workflows around agents rather than bolt them on. The less proven claims are the broader ones, that this model generalizes across companies, that code volume gains map cleanly to durable business value, and that internal agents will routinely beat specialized SaaS once the full maintenance cost is counted. So the useful conclusion is neither hype nor dismissal. The self-driving company looks less like an autonomous enterprise and more like an organization where judgment stays human while execution becomes increasingly agentic, instrumented, and continuously rebalanced. If that's the direction, then the winners probably won't be the companies with the most AI demos. They'll be the ones best at deciding where humans still matter, where agents really compound, and where today's shortcut becomes tomorrow's operational debt. That's it for this one. Thanks for listening to Podkey Slopcast. The big test for all of this is simple. More output is easy to claim. Better systems are harder. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.